Hi, everybody, and welcome. This is the Apostate Prophet, and I finally have the pleasure and great honor to host my favorite guest, possibly so far. This has been long in the making and waiting. Lots of people who watch my channel know him and have been asking about him forever, and I'm really, really happy that this is finally taking place. So I want to say hello to Mosab Hassan Yousef.
Hi, and thank you for having me. It's a great honor.
How are you doing?
Doing great.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, just for those who don't know you, who live under a rock, you are known by many different names. In fact, this is in the introduction of one of your most recent books, which says you are known as the Green Prince. You are known as many different things. But the first thing that I have known you as was the son of Hamas, because I read your book and later on listened to it again. Can you briefly explain what that means and what it is in reference to be the son of Hamas?
Well, my birth name is Musab. It's an Islamic name. And my parents chose the name after the first Islamic ambassador. He was one of Muhammad's best friends. In fact, he died fighting for the Islamic cause. And my father chose the name before I was born. And I think even until today, he still used that name. They call him Abu Musab. Even until today, after he disowned me. So for me, of course, I have a different name today, but I never reveal it to public.
Makes sense.
People who are very close to me call me by a completely different name for many years by now, but I choose to keep it only for the real people in my life. So this is how I am known, and that's the connection to my birthplace, to my family, to that culture. The son of Hamas, this is the title of the book. I am not a son of Hamas. And the Green Prince, that was my code within the Israeli intelligence, because they would never have your real name for communication, for security reasons. So it's just a code name. I'm none of that. I am not a name. This is just something to be recognized based on people's expectations, I guess.
I want to bring up something that I think is very important and that I think is missing from most of the conversation around this entire conflict. And you know it very well. I grew up being told, and I'm sure you did too, that in the possible near future, as Prophet Muhammad said, we Muslims will fight the Jews, and we Muslims will kill the Jews until the Jews hide themselves behind a rock or a tree, and a rock or a tree will say, "O Muslim, servant of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him." Except for the Karkat tree, which is the tree of the Jews. I heard this when I was a little child. I went to my friends in Germany, growing up as a Muslim kid in Germany, telling my friends about it and seeing them shocked. And I didn't understand at that point how messed up that was. I'm pretty sure that you heard that as well from early childhood. And so do other people growing up where you grew up, right?
Yeah, well, first of all, the hadith, لا تقوم الساعة حتى, meaning the end time will not come until the Muslims kill the Jews. So this is a condition for the Muslims to get to the point where the judgment day means that the end of this life as we know it, and then it would be the beginning of the kingdom of their heaven. where Allah is going to be sitting on a throne and He's going to decide who's going to hell and who's going to heaven. And of course, the Muslims, the true Muslims, are going to heaven, and all the non-Muslims are going to be doomed in eternal fire. In order for the Muslims to get to that point, they must kill the Jews first. This is a duty on behalf of Allah. So this is very, very dangerous. It's very dangerous, and it's in the most trusted Islamic source. But it's not only in the Hadith. It's also in the Quran.
And it's also in the Hamas Charter. And it has been part of the conflict the entire time. I know that the so-called reasonable Fatah, for example, in Judea and Samaria, or also known as the West Bank, they have been preaching this hadith to Muslims in the mosque. Just a few weeks after October 7, 2023, they had it during their Friday prayer. The imams were instructed to tell the people this hadith again, and that this will come true regardless of what happens now. So what's very, very upsetting to me, honestly, is you and I both know that there is a very, very messed up and very deep Jew hatred that is deeply entrenched in the religion, and that is possibly the main reason for this entire conflict. But people don't realize it. Even in Israel, when I went to Israel, it looked to me as if most Israelis don't see and don't agree that Islam is the problem, which is so weird, because I grew up my entire life learning that Israelis are demons and the worst people and that we have to kill them and so on. And there are Israelis saying, oh no, Islam is not the problem. Why do you think this is?
It's hard to believe, because other religions judge Islam and weigh Islam based on their belief systems. And since Islam was established in the 7th century Arabia, and the Quran is written in classic Arabic, which in fact most Muslims don't understand when they read it, you must understand the eloquence of the classic Arabic. It's a very sophisticated language. It's poetic. And in order to study classic Arabic, you have to spend many, many years. And even if you do that, you may not understand the Quran completely. Even though the Quran is being chanted 5 times a day through loudspeakers throughout the Muslim world, and Muslims repeat it as parrots without understanding what it's actually saying. So how can I expect from other religions to actually understand? And by the way, this was one of the main problems that they had. Why the majority of humanity was doomed to Allah's hell. And the only way for them to towards salvation, that they need to actually understand Arabic, classic Arabic, in order to understand the language or to decode the language of the divine. So this sounded unfair. And again, the Jewish people don't want to accept the fact that a religious majority, some 20% of the population of Earth, hate them. But this is not going to actually cancel the threat. The threat is there. The facts are there. Muslims have been acting on it for 14 centuries. The ethnic cleansing of the Jewish people from the Arab Peninsula is documented in the Islamic resources. The Islamic hatred in the Quran, dehumanizing the Jewish people, degrading them as inferior beings. They're not even humans, according to the Quran. They are apes and pigs. At the beginning, they were God's chosen people, but now they are outlaws. Now they are disobedient. And the duty of the Muslims on earth is to punish the Jewish people. What a coincidence. What we are dealing with in the Middle East right now. And all those who deny the religious connection, and they say this is a misinterpretation of a peaceful religion. Either they are ignorant, they haven't studied the topic, or they are in denial, or they are liars. They are liars because they have something to lose or they have something to gain. And this is the type of people who have been pushing the Islamic agendas. But in the meantime, people like us, we have to deal with the Islamic violence as the majority give them the cover. And this is where I say it for what it is. They like it, they don't like it. This is the truth, and I can support it with facts.
Yeah, ignoring it will not make it go away.
Since I visited Israel and came back, there is nothing I want more than to go back and explore even more. There is at least one thing that brings me closer to Israel, or that brings Israel closer to me: Artza Box. With Artza Box, I receive amazing things crafted by small business artisans of different backgrounds in Israel and sent to me in a gift box. It is described as a subscription box that follows in the steps of Jesus, featuring the best food, crafts, and content from across the Holy Land. If you get an Artza Box, not only will you connect to the land of Israel, you will also support these locals in difficult times. You will also support my work by using the discount code Apostate when you subscribe for your Artza Box. There is a lot of love and effort put into this, and I'm sure you will love it too. So use the discount code Apostate and get your Artza Box.
But here is the problem. I think that many people, especially who are inside the conflict, sometimes don't want to acknowledge how messed up it is because they don't want to lose hope. But you still have to face the realities. What do you think? Do you think that there is a peaceful solution possible with while Islam is still there, while Islam has such a stronghold on, the people in the region?
Right. Look, it is not about solution. It's about integration. It's about dropping false identities and identifying with the real. Most of the Muslims identify as Muslims, but when we ask them, what makes you a Muslim? They don't know how to answer. When they were born free, children of earth, children of the universe, children of God. They had equal opportunity like the rest of humanity. They have the same potential. But then the Islamic identity was pushed on them. And now they hanging onto it so hard because they don't know any other identity. And this is why I say, the majority of the Muslim people, what's so-called Muslim people, are actually not practicing Muslims. And most of them are doomed to hell according Allah himself and according to the Quran, because they are in violation of the Islamic laws. They drink, they commit sin, they break the Islamic laws. They are going against the will of Allah anyway. So to continue to identify as Muslims doesn't make any sense. And to me, I find it actually pathetic, because they are identifying with the Islamic identity for security, for status, for recognition, for respectability. This is the only thing. It's not about righteousness. And their anger when you challenge their identity is because of their fear. This is why they are angry. This is why they are violent. This is why they are anti all the non-Muslims. And today in the 21st century, I really find it very hard to believe that we have some 2 billion people projecting their delusion on something that is non-existential, a hypothetical entity that does not exist. I'm not saying that God does not exist, because in my opinion, there is no difference between the believer and the disbeliever. Both of them are two sides of the same coin. But to believe that Allah is the only God and he sits on a throne somewhere up in the sky, he's up there, he's not down there, and he's totally separate from his creation, I think this is madness.
And he really hates other people and he considers them his enemies. And he wants Muslims to also hate those other enemies.
Right.
And to fight them and to kill them.
Well, you say he, for example. So he's represented as a male. And this is already referring to an egoistic mindset. It's a man's attempt to project its ego on a third party, hypothetical entity. So when we talk about Allah and we have some hundreds of millions of people say Allah, each one of them is basically projecting their ego on that non-existential entity. They may think that they all agree on the same God, but in reality, each one of them is projecting their own conscious and subconscious. So in psychology, this is a big human mental defect or disorder, you can call it. It shows the limitation of that mindset. And as long as we don't discuss this problem, because we don't want to hurt their feelings, they will continue to be in this darkness. And I think throughout the centuries, a huge part of humanity will choose to be in delusion, in the cave of Plato, looking at shadows and they thinking it's real. A handful of people can make it out of that cave, and when they see the light, they try to help those who are sit in darkness, in fear. They get persecuted. This is the essence of the Greek philosophy. The nature of the mind, the nature of the ego. It's not a he, it's not a she, it's not separate, and it projects itself in limitless forms. That includes men, women, animal, nature. All forms belong to that divine intelligence, and to just limit it or reduce it to an ego mind, then start to act as the sword of God on earth, punishing people for disobedience or punishing people for being different is not acceptable.
Let me go back to where you started out, because we talk about religion, we talk about belief in delusions, belief in Allah, and so on. You were raised in a very Islamic household, and you were raised in a family that is where your father is considered a co-founder of Hamas, the very terrorist organization that Israel, and in fact the world, is dealing with right now. It's not just Israel that is fighting them. Israel is doing a great job fighting them, but it's actually the world fighting them, while idiots in the West and everywhere else come out in their support. But you grew up in a household where Hamas was co-founded and where Islam played a big role. How was it to be raised there, to start your life there?
From my early childhood, I was committed Muslim. My mother used to say, before you were born, you were in the mosque. And my father, in fact, started the Islamic revolution in our area, because prior to Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood, Islam was pretty much dead after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the Turks, where you're coming from, after 400 years of occupation. And that was shortly before the establishment of the State of Israel and the return of the Jewish people to their homeland after hundreds of years of ethnic cleansing on the hands of the Muslims. So after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, the Arab world rejected Islam completely. People were very, very tired because the Islamic Khilafah isolated the Arab world. And they forced sanctions and monopoly over the Arab world. Like, for example, Europe discovered printing. And that led to rebellions against the absolute control of the church over people's lives in Europe. Now, the Ottomans did not allow printing, and they did not allow other intellectual property to enter the Arab world. And this gap of 400 years of isolation, of sanction on the Arab world explains the distance between the Middle East and Europe. So this is basically led the Arabs to, I don't want to say to hate Islam. They just rejected Islam. Women were free. If you to tell anybody in the Middle East to wear a scarf or a hijab or a burqa, people would laugh at you. People used to go to the cinemas. They had the nightlife. They drink alcohol. They partied. The Middle East, after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, was a big party place until Sayyid Qutb and Hassan al-Banna brought the Islamic ideology back to life. And this was their attempt, by the way, to rebuild the Islamic State. Now, I was born around that time when the Muslim Brotherhood invaded the Judea and Samaria. Fatah and the PLO were just national, secular, non-religious at that time, influenced by the Islamic religion, but not as much as the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood was the rival force to nationalism. Because they don't believe in nationalism, they don't believe in Palestine, they don't believe in political borders, they believe only in one global Islamic Khilafah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but one of Hamas's main reasons for rising and getting popular and riling people up was they were saying that the other Palestinian groups are basically they could compromise with Israel and go for this nationalist idea and accept weaknesses and all that. And Hamas was against that because they wanted full control and imperialism and Islam.
Look, every one of Hamas also have has their own opinion, and their rival Islamic groups like the Islamic Jihad and the Salafi Jihadists and the other many groups or sects, Shi'i, Sunni, Wahhabi, Alawi, name it. They are all conflicted of what is the Islamic ideal. What's the perfect model of Islam? So they fight among each other. And this is exactly the environment where I was born. So I had to actually learn from the Salafis, from the Sufis, which in fact my favorite sect, and they don't even consider themselves as Muslims, and the Jihadis. Then the Muslim Brotherhood claimed to be the middle way, that they believe in jihad, but also they believe in building the society. And of course, all of that happened in the sensitive area of Palestine, where Israel is involved and Jewish people involved, which add to the complexity of the situation. So growing up, it was not only in a Hamas household. I grew up in the mosque. I studied I was required to study the Quranic language from very, very early age. I was required to memorize huge portions of the Quran when I was as young as 10 years old. It was like my duty to do that. And later on, I went to a Sharia school while I was going to a secular school. So on one hand, I studied in a normal school, and I studied in a Sharia school. I had piles of books, and I had the Quran on the top of that to study, which, by the way, today I enjoy because I had the opportunity to study Arabic, which is a fascinating language. It's like the best part of that culture. So basically, this is my early conditioning. And I can go on and on, but maybe it's irrelevant to most people who haven't lived it.
Yeah, I know that you learned from very early on, like many others. I read your book, and you explained that you were indoctrinated. You trusted your father and the sentiments very much. Of course, you learned that Israel is basically the enemy, and you were very much brainwashed early on into this thing, but you changed.
I'd say conditioned.
Okay, yeah. Let's
Conditioned.
Let's go for that. At what point did you change your mind about whether the enemy is actually Israel or not?
Look, we blamed Israel on all our problems. And this is something that did not feel right to me. Like, for example, the honor killing in that society, or killing homosexuals, or killing the non-Muslims, and also the inner violence within that society. That an intelligent person would look and say, how can you blame Israel on all that? And this is what the Palestinians are very good at, to blame Israel on all their problems, never taking responsibility for their own actions. And something I did not like. This is an evolution. It is not just a one or two turning points. It's a chain of events. It's every day, every moment of my life that brought me to this realization. And I'm still learning. I'm not saying that I learned this in the past. And I'm still learning about Israel. I'm still learning about myself. I'm still learning about that complicated part of the world. And the more I learn about it, actually, I'm learning more about mankind and the human condition, the human delusion, and the human limitation. In the meantime, I came to understand the human potential that can transcend all these barriers. And when I demonstrated the power to transcend the barrier, I had to drop my beliefs, and I had to risk my life, and I had to accept to be shunned and to be labeled, to be threatened on a regular basis. Those who live in slavery don't understand this. They can never relate because they are under the influence of death.
That's the problem, though. Can we play not the first clip, actually, but the second one with the kids? You happen to have a gift. You have seen through it. You are intelligent. You stand out. Most people will not easily get to the conclusions that you got to. This is a clip from a show.
لما يجي عندكم اضربهم بوكس خلي وجهه منظره عشان حرب فلسطين ان شاء الله ايه على العموم يا روان انا بقول له يمسك حجر ولما يجي اليهود عنده يمسكوه
طبعا الجيران اليهوديين عادي
مش عليهم
لو كانوا يهود يعني جيران او صهاينه عادي ترين ليش حابه تصير شرطيه؟ ليش؟ زي مين؟ زي عمو مين عمو؟ أحمد هو شرطي؟ شو بيسوي طب الشرطي؟
بس الحرامي والبيعمل مشاكل
وبطخ اليهود صح؟ انت بدك تصيري زيه؟ ان شاء الله لما تكبري لما طخ اليهود كلهم؟ كلهم؟ طيب
So
Wow.
this is just one of those clips from Hamas's very own Al-Aqsa TV from a show called Tomorrow's Pioneers, known as Ruwad Al-Ghad, where they seemingly broadcast things like these to little children and a little child. I don't know, I can't tell what age those children were, but very, very little. They can't think of their own. They can't form their own thoughts. They don't know anything about the world. But they are told, not only in person, that it's good to throw rocks at Jews and to kill Jews, and that it's a fantastic thing to become a police officer and to shoot all of the Jews, like it's a very fantastic thing. This is also broadcast to people on TV. How much of this did you witness growing up in Palestinian society? And do you think this represents like the general sentiment of what people are taught?
Well, first of all, you see a child indoctrinating a child. It's even worse.
That's true.
And this is part of that culture. This is part of my struggle and my fight to stop this process of indoctrinating children. It's a child abuse. The children were born free. And in what's so-called the Palestinian society, children have been indoctrinated to carry the burden of sick generations.
Mm-hmm.
To kill, to kidnap, to blow up things on behalf of the adults who could not move on, who could not let go, who still live in darkness and expect from their children and their children's children to die on seeking revenge.
Mm-hmm.
This is how this vicious cycle of violence is continuing for a long time, and we must break the chain. We must break the cycle. Palestinian violent ideology is the biggest enemy, is the biggest threat in the face of children and their evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And if we allow savages like this to get away with their crime and continue to teach children hatred, innocent children, this is very dangerous, especially, they say, around the age of 6. It would be almost impossible to reverse
Mm-hmm.
that period of conditioning. It's very, very dangerous and sensitive part of the child's evolution. And even though the children think it's a game or think it's just very simple, they're not paying attention that they are deciding, or their future has been decided for them. It's our responsibility. And as a son of that region, of that land, I did not understand what we were going through. We all hear this at the mosque, in the school, in the street, through the media, through the leaflets. We did not have social media at that time. Today, it's on the social media. So many have their platforms and they're pushing the violent ideology of Palestine, expecting from the children to die on their behalf. And all of them have one thing in common. They're all cowards. Because they push violent agendas on the children, but all of them sit in hideouts, in comfort, making careers out of the tragedy of the children, the Arab and the Jewish children of that region. And now it's not only limited to Gaza and the West Bank. Now it's became the business of many Americans, of many Europeans, of many con artists, who actually, each one of them is serving their selfish agendas. And I ask these mediocres, who is going to pay the price? Who is going to fight your ugly fight? Do you want the children to continue dying so you can satisfy your egoistic ambitions? And to make a point, if you want to fight a superpower, Israel, a legitimate society, a legitimate nation, older than history, it was there before history was written. If you want to really annihilate Israel, a nuclear power, then go ahead. Why are you waiting? Why are you sitting still here in New York or in Los Angeles, preaching the Palestinian indoctrination? Go down to Gaza, carry a rifle and start shooting. Show me. But don't expect from the children to continue dying. Because every time they say and they preach and they spread the Palestinian narrative, the propaganda, children are paying the price. And this is where I am at odds with these people.
So we saw what children are taught in Gaza and in the West Bank. You know what it is, what people are taught. It's messed up because from a very, very early age, when they can't even think, they're indoctrinated with the idea that Jews are the enemy and they need to fight and kill them. They don't even get the chance to ever think about this. This is the reality, the truth that they learn, and they never, ever think about it. Now, you know this. I pretty much know it. Other people who are very stupid don't know this. Here we have somebody harassing you in the street. This went viral recently. And they accuse you of being the bad guy.
Kids, come fight me! Come fight me! Come fight me! Stop killing kids! Come fight me! Come fight me! Stop fucking killing kids and come fight me, nigga! Come fight me! Come fucking fight me! Come on, stop being a bitch and throw the first punch so I can fuck you up! Come on! Come on! Stop fucking killing kids and fight me!
When I saw this video, I thought, I don't know why this person uploaded this video because it looks like they look very pathetic and you look really, I don't know what word to use, but badass, you know? You look tough.
I don't know about badass.
Because you're ignoring this guy who is coming up to you and telling you repeatedly, come fight me, come throw the first punch, but he's just there recording you and you don't even react.
Right.
And he thinks he's fighting for the children.
Yeah. Well, this is the problem. In my view, what the camera cannot show, actually, I'm seeing the children on the sidewalk with their mothers being pushed away to the side, terrified because of his violence. While he's accusing me of being genocidal, he's pushing the Palestinian propaganda of victimhood that is ending up or leading to the suffering of more children in Gaza. This is the twisted mindset of all the pro-Palestine or those who identify as Palestinians. It's not that I am new to such phenomena. He should have put the 45-minute harassment. He put only 30 seconds of it. But he should put, because I gave him opportunity for approximately 45 minutes from Central Park, walking at my normal pace to throw the punch that he was talking about. And I don't know what held him back. And then I was just wondering, how he's going to do it with one hand, because he was just focused on filming the thing. If he was serious about it, then maybe there wouldn't be a camera recording the whole thing.
Did he really harass you for like 45 minutes or so straight?
Do I need to repeat myself? I challenged him to put the whole thing. He chose the best part of it and left the parts that would show his quality. So, and he wasn't the only one also. So basically, this is the chaos that we are dealing with. This is New York City. If it was in any different region, it would be a different story. We are in New York. This is the jewel of the Western civilization. And the last thing I wanted, to have Palestinian indoctrinated savages to bring their violence and to bring their harassment and to bring their chaos against decent citizens who just basically walk in, minding their business.
How did you stay quiet for that long? It must be difficult to, after everything that you see and hear all the time, some idiot comes up to you, or some idiots come up to you and harass you and think they know everything. They think they are the heroes, and they try to provoke you to fight them, and you just walked on and never even reacted.
Well, I think I was louder than him, but he did not realize it. Sometimes silence is louder than the loudest voice. And again, if we want to start reacting to this type of attitude in public, this means that we are going to turn our civilized society into a jungle where the strong would eat the weak. Strength is not about muscles, and it's not about who can beat who. It's unfortunate that some people don't know the real power and the real inner strength to transcend our human limitations. And I wish that this was the most dangerous moment of my life. People like this, they don't know real danger. And if you have been in the most dangerous situations, I don't want to say face to face with death. I can go even beyond that to say that you already died thousands of times and you crossed the barriers between life and death and you've been to the other side, then you came back. You have no regard for any human intimidation or human temptation. These people don't realize this because they haven't been there. And by the time they get there, I am not going to wait for them. So this is why I choose not to react to that. And everybody would project themselves on what they see.
There is a very dark chapter in your book about when you were in prison because the agency wanted to keep you there for a while to not raise suspicion. So they put you in prison, but you were working with Hamas, with the Hamas leadership in prison. And you witnessed torture of others, including other Hamas members, regular people who just have personal beef with, and so on. People don't realize this. Some people really think that Hamas is this wonderful resistance movement, but you have seen their depths. You have seen what they do to their own people.
Right.
Right? Is this like a common thing that they do? The torture and mistreatment of their own?
Yeah, I wrote long chapters about my experience in prison, and there is no better place to actually get to know people than spending time with them in prison, because you're locked up and they are there in your face for weeks, months, and years, in my case. I met so many of Hamas leaders. That includes people who have been assassinated just recently. I know them personally, and I know them very well. I know that type of mindset. And this is why I rejected to be part of that game, part of that realm of low life, of violence, of delusion, of hatred. The problem with this phenomena, Islamists and Hamas and Islamic Jihad and the cause for Palestine, what they don't understand, that violence is a dead end. Even if they succeed in eliminating, let's say, their enemies, they will turn against each other. This is the reality. Like, for example, all this Islamic hatred towards the non-Muslims. They want to convert the rest of the world to Islam. And if the people don't submit to their religion or to their belief system, they are entitled or they are authorized to kill those who don't obey. So let's say they succeed in their goal. What will happen after? Who are they going to kill next? They will kill each other.
Each other, yeah.
This is the only outcome of this. And by the way, when I say this, not because I'm a prophet and I can see the future, simply because I studied the history, the Islamic history. And basically, the Islamic history is full of the Islamic failure, that they achieved their Islamic Khilafah. They shed lots of blood to achieve that goal. And once they were crowned as caliphs, they began to kill each other.
This is the ironic thing. If, for example, by some supernatural, I don't know, reason or something, all Israelis, all Jews suddenly disappeared from the entire region, but everything that they built was left exactly as it is, what would happen the next day is that Hamas would start claiming everything and fighting the other factions, and it would result in a civil war and a destruction of the region, right?
Well, you don't need to think about it twice. This is, Earth is vast. They have been given the same opportunity, the same land, the same potential, under the same sun. When heaven reigns, it does not differentiate or say this is Jewish and this is Arab. It gives equally to everybody. There is a society that succeeded in developing the land, and the other society stayed in victimhood, lazy, blaming, and they never developed the land. And now they are attracted not because of the land, because of the development, because of the achievement, the success. This is a universal problem, by the way. We had movements here in the United States that say, Occupy Wall Street. And of course, they think that building civilization is coincidental, that people were lucky, and there are some people who are unlucky. They don't want to accept reality, that everyone is the legitimate creator of their own destiny, of their own life. And we build it.
Mm-hmm.
If I build it, if I am the creator, then I have the authority to be the destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
I construct it. If I own it, if I am the creator, then I am the destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to me. But those who did not take part in the creation don't have the authority to mess with my creation. So Israel has been created, and Tel Aviv is a very advanced city.
Mm-hmm.
Gaza could have been Tel Aviv, could have been even more advanced if they wanted to do that. But that requires lots of freedom. That requires lots of sacred work. That requires discipline. That requires vision. That requires to be anchored in the universal truth, in humility, in submission and determination, resilience, to build and to create. These are the qualities of creators.
Mm-hmm.
But to sit around and wait and say, hey, I want equal opportunity. What do you mean by equal opportunity? You have it. You have the same potential. So this entire fight and hatred towards Israel, it's a matter of jealousy. It's self-hatred. And it's the denial. And it's the attempt to escape the failure. And there is no way to escape the failure. And those who don't accept failure, they can never find success.
You bring up a good point, which I talked about before, which is that there are no excuses. In Gaza was autonomous. They had their own governance. They had the means. They had everything. Of course, they had a temporary blockade because it was problematic, but within the means that they had, they could have turned the place into a wonderful place if that was actually their goal. However, they focused on victimhood and fighting. And this is where we are now. It's all destroyed. Was it really worth it? What do you think Hamas would do? In short, I want to play a clip, but what do you think Hamas would do to the Israelis and the Jews if they succeeded and defeated Israel and took over the region?
Simply, they would do what the Nazis did. If Israel did not have the power to defend itself, the Arabs would have invaded long time ago. They tried back in 1947. They tried back in 1967, 1973, and they kept trying until today. If Israel is not a strong country, and everyone in Israel, unfortunately, before they go to school, they're required to train how to defend themselves and how to work together, because the Jewish trauma after the Holocaust taught them something different than any other society. And I cannot blame people if they are in the face of an existential threat. It's not only Hamas. And why Israel today cannot allow Hamas to succeed or to get away with their crime on October 7, because this means that they are igniting the bloodlust in the entire Arab and Muslim world. And they want to just make it very clear to everybody that the Jewish blood is not allowed. And it's, the Jews are not there to be hunted for sport. This is not a game. They are a significant part of the human family. And it's not up to the Arabs or to the Muslims or Palestinians or Nazis or anti-Semites or people in the East or in the West to decide the fate of a nation that long for life.
Mm-hmm.
That is, and by the way, name how many nations are out there that actually lived for thousands of years. This small nation of some 15 to 20 million people are resilient to time. 5,000 years of evolution. And they maintain to stay a small minority throughout the centuries against so many attempts to annihilate them. And they survived. It's a miracle. Israel is a miracle, the biggest miracle of all time.
It is very, very admirable.
And to just dedicate one's life to annihilate such people. For what? Why don't you get inspired by these people? Exactly. Why don't you learn something from them and their resilience? They are the symbol of life against so many odds. And yes, if you allow Hamas and the other savages, even if you allow some newly indoctrinated Americans to harass the Jewish people, to abuse the Jewish people, things will develop very, very fast, and it becomes a Holocaust again. Mm-hmm. And this is what we have been warning from the beginning of the war. Now with the social media transcending all the political borders and invading the Americans at home and at campuses, dividing the country, spreading hateful ideology based on the victim narrative, where within no time, they started as anti-war activists. Now, then they became pro-Palestine, then suddenly became anti-Israel. Then now they are becoming Nazis. Yeah. And this is in less than a year. Mm-hmm. All this repetition of victim propaganda based on the Gaza tragedy, which all of us know that war is ugly, and civilian casualty and the collateral damage. And these people now, they choose to be the victim. And worse than those who identify with the victim, the ones who identify as the saviors, to pose as the savior of the Gaza children. On one hand, pushing the violent ideology. On the other hand, to complain when there is civilian casualty. Well, you are the cause, but you are not aware of it.
I would say every single person who goes online and posts in support of the Palestinian cause and advocates for more fighting for the Palestinians and so on has blood on their hands. I would say this again and again, and I don't feel sorry about it. But they have blood on their hands because they continue fueling a fight that is completely unnecessary, that is lost, that is hopeless, and that only results in the deaths of more and more people. People sit in their comfortable homes and post about free Palestine, and all they contribute is more death, more blood.
How can they contribute? When they say free Palestine, they literally mean free Palestine. They want free stuff. They want free items. Yeah. They want free everything. That includes free country. Mm-hmm. I am supposed to go and build the country for them out of gold and represent it to their majesty while they sit in comfort, dwelling in laziness, doing nothing. This is what free Palestine means, because Palestine never existed as a country. It has never been occupied. And to say free something that does not exist, like free Santa, or like free Wakanda, there is no difference. Then to accuse Israel, the indigenous of the land, with overwhelming evidence of their existence, more than any other nation on earth, not only in the region, of being colonizers, being invaders, being white supremacists, accusing them of apartheid, while the Arab community in Israel demonstrate their democratic rights We have them in a Supreme Court. We have them in a police force. We have them in the intelligence. We have them in the university. We have them as doctors, as lawyers. They are a very important part of the social fabric. 2 million of them, they started at just a couple of 100,000, and today there are 2 million of them, and they are decent citizens of the state of Israel. They would never trade their Israeli citizenship for any Arab national identity. And to go and say Israel is an apartheid state, or to say there is ethnic cleansing, but we tell them, how can you explain the demographic growth? Where did it come from? Did they import these people? They kept their homes. They did not escape during the war. And who was it fault? Who asked them to leave their houses and escape? It was the Arab armies.
Yep.
The Arab armies told the Arabs in Judea, Samaria, and the land of Israel to evacuate because they did not want to differentiate between Jew and Arab when they invade. They just wanted to literally wipe out everybody in that land when they came. This was their intention in 1967, but miraculously they lost the war. The Arabs who left hoping that they're going to return after the Jews being killed in the land, they never returned. And this is where we had the refugee problem. It's not that Israel forced them out of their lands. The Arabs who stayed in their homes, they are still in their homes until today, and they're multiplied. So this means we don't have the issue of ethnic cleansing. Then they accuse of genocide. All these allegations are based, it's not only nonsense, it's actually false accusations. They're serious accusations. And it's leading to more violence. False narrative eventually lead to violence.
There's something very, very nice that you brought up, which I just want to highlight because I like it, which is that Jews are a people who existed for thousands of years, for millennia, and they have managed to, while staying a minority, to prosper and to live, to value life, to bring their values back, to revive their language as a spoken language, and so on. It's almost, you could almost think of this as a fulfillment of the biblical promise and the biblical idea and instruction for the Jews to be a light unto the nations. Why would people not be inspired by this? And what's the harm in that, right? I mean, it cannot harm anybody to see this as something great and to try to be like the Jews, right? If everyone tried to be like the Jews, if everyone valued life like the Jews, if everyone tried to persist despite anything like the Jews, who could this hurt? It would be good for everyone. Why value stupid ideologies and death instead? I've heard the phrase from so many Islamists and others, Islamist groups, from Hamas members, which is, we love death like you love life. That's what they say to Israel, what they say to Jews.
Yeah, well, they think it's bravery.
Yeah.
You know, they think the bravest position of an individual is actually not to be afraid of death.
Yeah.
Not realizing that the fear of life is much greater than the fear of death. And those who actually praise life against so many challenges and against the human suffering, and they fight the good fight, those are the ones who refine and integrate. It's like gold. You purify it with fire. Then they become into gods. Not only light unto the nation, but lights like stars in the universe. But in order to integrate to that level of consciousness, you must fight the good fight with patience, with power, anchored in the truth, in tolerance, not through violence, not through intimidation, not to say, hey, I'm brave, I'm not afraid of dying. Then die. You already did. You already did. I invite you to come to life and fight the good fight and take responsibility. Life is all about taking responsibility. Freedom is all about taking responsibility. There is no freedom if there is no responsibility. And these people say, free, free Palestine. They want freedom. but they don't want to take responsibility.
So this is Fatih Hamad, who is, you could almost see him like the Goebbels of Hamas in a way, not as prominent, but he has been in charge of media. He's in charge of Al-Aqsa TV. He has been speaking to people in Arabic. He's not very much known on the international stage, but I wish people were more familiar with him because he says some of the most honest and really, really messed up things. But here is what he thinks, and I just want to ask you, how could Israel possibly deal with such a society that is taught things like these?
لنتطلع إلى أمرين مهمين نحن قاب قوسين أو أدنى منهما. أولا هو تنظيف فلسطين من دنس اليهود واستئصالهم بإذن الله، وهو قاب قوسين أو أدنى. 4 سنوات يا إخواننا، 2022 بنكون خلصنا منهم. أما الأمر الثاني وهو إقامة الخلافة بعد أن تتعافى الأمة من سرطانها وهو اليهود بإذن الله سبحانه وتعالى. أنه لا يعني أننا سائرون في مسيرة العودة السلمية، أننا تخلينا عن المسيرة العسكرية الجهادية، فيدنا على الزناد ومصانعنا تشتغل وتعمل في الليل والنهار وفي كل يوم
the idea he's presenting and the ideal that he glorifies to his people, this man put in charge of people by Hamas, is that the goal is to eradicate the Jews and the next goal is to build the caliphate.
Right.
And this was a speech that he gave in 2018 during the so-called peaceful March of Return, which Israel gets lots of hate for. This was peaceful. This guy was leading the peaceful March for Return, but saying, yes, we are peaceful right now, but our fingers are on the trigger. As soon as we are ready, we will eradicate them and build the caliphate.
Right.
How is Israel supposed to deal with this?
Well, first of all, this guy is one of the founders of Hamas security wing. He was, believe it or not, Sinwar's and Daif handler, this guy. Mohammed al-Daif was assassinated a few months ago. The Hamas military wing leader was handled by this guy.
Have you met him?
I never met him.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, and most importantly, that his prediction that in 2022 Israel would be wiped out of the map and he would establish his Islamic Khilafah apparently did not work
It's because of
as
COVID.
he planned. Yeah, I think COVID maybe postponed it for a couple more years. Delusional people, and Israel cannot negotiate with this. Any democracy cannot negotiate with this. Any decent human society cannot accept this type of savages who choose violence to fulfill their ambitions and their lust for power. And when any democratic society or actually any human community, when they reach the point where there is lunatics like this, outrageous, who want to kill, who want to destroy, thinking that they have the perfect model, a failing model, by the way, proven wrong, proven a dead end, and they just want to repeat it out of curiosity to see what will happen when they become the rulers of the universe, then any society, not only Israel, has no choice but to fight. And the use of force in this case is totally acceptable and justified.
Do you think most Gazans or Palestinians, do you think half or most agree with what Fatih Hamad said here?
Most of the Muslim world agree with him.
Really, really messed up. So there is a lot of talk about what Israel would do with Gaza after they are successful in eliminating Hamas, which seems to be an endless mission, to be very honest. But It's just lots of Israelis have this whole concern that even if they annexed the land and the people were part of the land, they would slowly have to be integrated and they would have to become citizens. They would have to vote. And if you give people who have such thoughts the chance to vote and to become part of your society, it's basically suicide. They want to destroy Israel. They want to eradicate the Jews.
Right.
How can you give them this opportunity? So what do you think Israel should or needs to do in the long term to deal with this and to, eliminate the threat, to get rid of the threat, and to establish a prospering society without being constantly fired at?
It is a big problem. And I really don't know what is the solution, but war. I'm afraid war is the only way towards peace in this case. Because when people are determined to annihilate other people for no reason other than a promise in the future or a promise made in the past by someone we don't know if he or she ever existed, and we are still hoping and trying to do everything we can to fulfill that promise, there is going to be war. And I'm afraid only war that can set the terms, if I can say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I hope we don't get to that point. Israel did not displace the Palestinians. In fact, they are not even Palestinians. They're just Arabs. Yeah. Mostly economical migrants, Bedouins, Gypsies, Romans, Persians, all type of people, Turks, Egyptians. Many people crossed the Gaza is the gate between Asia and Africa. It's right on the border of the African and Asian continents. It's the gate. And many people crossed that region, many.
You know what's funny? You say this, and we say this. Other people don't want to realize it. It has become this popular narrative in the West, especially, to say Palestinians are the indigenous people. The very same guy, Fatih Hamad, there is another video that went, that was recorded by memory.
Yeah, I saw that when he was saying we are Egyptians, we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course.
He was crying for help from the Arab world and saying, we are all Egyptians. Half of us are from Saudi Arabia. The other half are from somewhere else. Yeah.
Right. No, they're very confused about their identity. The fact that they identify, they choose a national identity after a colonial entity is the biggest, I don't want to say joke.
It is a joke.
It's very humiliating.
Yeah.
To actually claim to be indigenous of the land, fighting against colonizers. But in the meantime, you choose a colonial entity as your national identity.
Palestine.
And you cancel the true and real indigenous people's right to that land with overwhelming evidence. That includes temples, kingdom ruins, Bibles, currency, artifacts, all the archaeological evidence that we have in that region support only one indigenous group, and the other group actually has no connection. They cannot even provide one evidence to connect them to that land. And also, when their history begins in 1964, the moment they identify with Palestine as Palestinians, this means, like at best, their history started in 1922, when the Brits created the British Mandate for Palestine. Made, established, and terminated by the British. So even if Palestine, They choose to have monopoly over Palestine. And if this is true, this means that they started in 1922. And prior to that, they did not have any existence.
Yeah.
So it's total ignorance. It's insanity. They don't know their own history. And I was one of them, because I took the history from my parents that we were Palestinians and they were Palestine, and the Jews occupied Palestine. And that's it. This was the source of our history. We did not bother to read any history books until later. Just actually in the past few years, I had the out of necessity, I had no choice but to go back and study the history of that region, to find out, oh my God, Palestine never existed as a country. Yeah. The very foundation of the entire Palestinian narrative. So it doesn't get more insane than this.
The first attempt to actually officially announce a state called Palestine was in the 80s, right? It was done by the PLO with Arafat, with his intentions to create something like that.
Look, let's put it in a simple way. In 1948, when the British ended the mandate of the land of Israel, from the river to the sea, and other parts of that region, by the way, that included Jordan and parts of Egypt as well. When they ended their occupation, the Arabs and the Jews had equal opportunity to establish their own state. The partition, which was proved by the United Nations, gave the opportunity to the Arabs to build their state. There was no such thing as Palestinian people at that time. Or let's say Palestinian as ethnic group, because they were Palestinians, but this was Jews, Druze, Christians, Arabs, many other ethnic groups who were given Palestinian passport. But who issued this passport? It was the British Empire. Now, the Arabs...
There's something very...
It's important.
Sure,
Let me finish.
Go ahead.
The Arabs had equal opportunity, 1948, to declare their independence. The Jews, when they had the opportunity, they declared their independence, 1948.
Yeah.
But the Arabs refused to declare their independence. Instead, they declared war against the Jewish people. 40 years later, in 1988, Yasser Arafat declared the Palestinian independence. 40 years later. Yeah. Now, the problem where people don't understand, in this 40 years, many major wars changed the map and changed the reality on the ground and made things irreversible. And to come 40 years later, or even today, 70 years later, 76 years later, and demand the 1948 opportunity. How can I give you that? Who has the power to reverse the wheel of time and all the tragedy and all the suffering of people on both sides, and the memories and the pain and the killing and the bloodshed? Who has that power to be able to erase all that and bring us back to 1948, where so the Arabs can enjoy the privilege of 76 years of forgiveness for all the violence that they have committed against their own children and against their neighbors? Nobody has that authority. Even if I have that authority, I would never give it as a reward to the Palestinians.
There is a final clip that I just want your reaction to, because it was a little bit surprising for me to see. We have a Gazan man who, like, people know me as a, can you pause quickly? People know that people know who follow me know that I'm very, very anti-Islam, and I might have said some really harsh things in the past. But this guy who is from Gaza, who's feeling directly from Gaza, is much worse against Islam than I have ever been, and I'm very surprised. But what do you think about this?
ايش فائدة 7 اكتوبر يا اولاد الحرام يا شراميط يا منايف يا مسلمين يا شراميط يا منايف ايش فائدة 7 اكتوبر؟ الدمار هذا والخراب ايش فائدته يا اولاد الحرام؟
Wow.
عشان خاطر مين يا منايف يا شراميط يا مسلمين؟ يا مسلمين يا اولاد الحرام اي كوانيف اسلامكم يا اولاد الشرمطات لا ابوكم لا ابو اسلامكم لا ابوكم لا ابو اسلامكم يا اولاد الحرام عشان خاطر مين الدمار هذا؟ نعيش في الدخانيش هذه وفي الخيم وفي الخراب هذا ليش نعيش في الخراب هذا؟
You know, notice, this guy does not say Palestinians. He does not say Arabs. He's very clear. He say Muslims. You know why? Because he knows the truth. And his frustration, his anger is projecting the essence of this conflict. This is an Islamic war. It's an Islamic assault against the Jewish minority. And on October 7, they celebrated the attacks. They thought it was a victory, that they scored big time, that they were able to stab the lion when the lion was asleep. But when the lion got awakened and he was not dead, he was bleeding, but it was a lot more dangerous than they anticipated. They start crying genocide. This is, they brought destruction on Gaza, and they have the capacity to bring destruction to the rest of the world. If they pick up momentum, and you see them today, what they are doing in Montreal, in the United States, in Europe, and how they're, you give them the freedom and they exploit the Western freedoms, thinking that this is their right. Then suddenly, and with no time, they turn violent. If they pick up momentum, they will destroy everything in Europe and in the United States. Maybe in the United States a lot more harder because we don't have lots of Muslims. They are still a minority, but also they are growing. They are growing not through illegal immigration. They are growing through spreading their Islamic ideology, and they represent it as a peaceful ideology and slowly drag Americans into their belief system, into their rabbit hole, where they would turn from people looking for spirituality into fanatics and eventually into jihadists. And they will not even know how they originated or how they got to the point where they became violent or jihadi Muslims. We cannot allow them have pick up momentum. Gaza, what we see, the destruction of Gaza, is caused by of Muslims, and we need to learn something from that, because what we see in Gaza today, this could be the future of the globe. And by the way, we are not that far. We may think that we are in 21st century. The violence is on the rise, and Palestine is a very, very dangerous trigger. I said this from day one. Don't validate their violence. It's a wildfire. It starts with a very small flame, and then it can burn everything in its way. And the fire is still raging. And the people are not paying attention. They are underestimating. They think it's only a problem in the Middle East. And we tell them, you validate violence in the Middle East. You validate raping. You validate kidnapping of innocent civilians. You validate the ethnic cleansing of religious minority. Then you escape your responsibility and you blame and you spread false accusations against the victim. And you, this type of mentality and the growth like of their movement will take over in no time if we don't counter them, and they will turn everything into rubble. And at that point, it would be too late. And people will even forget about our conversation. They will not even realize or remember that some people were warning them because it would be too late. And we don't want to get to that point. The war is on the rise. Yesterday, there was a hypersonic ballistic missile attack, very dangerous weaponry that has the capacity to carry mass destruction and nuclear weapon. There is race for arming many hot fronts throughout the globe. And if this keeps escalating, we are not that far from World War III. We are not that far. This is not only to scare the public, oh my God, we have to do something about it. We are heading in that direction, the speed of light. And Palestine is a very, very dangerous trigger. And what we need to do is to get united and realize that we will destroy ourselves. Now we are enjoying prosperity. This is the hard work of almost a century. But this could collapse, all of it. Look around. You see all this architecture, all these skyscrapers, and all the achievements in technology, in communication, in medicine. This could all disappear in no time. We think that it's lasting forever. And by the way, in the conditioned existence, it always rises. Every civilization rise and eventually fall. But what I don't want to see, I don't want to see a free fall. A free fall means a disaster and so much suffering, so much pain. That could mean war, death, flooding, famine, disease, savagery, barbarism, rape. I don't want to see people eating each other on the streets. If it was meant for this civilization to collapse, I want it to collapse gracefully. And I wanted to give it a canopy. So we all can watch and say, oh my God, we thought it would last forever, but it didn't. But at least we can work together in unity, how to survive the collapse of civilization. Then we can start over, as we started over many times in the past, throughout millennia. So with that said, we don't want to get to the point where it's just completely out of control, where the women are afraid to walk down the streets, where no one can find food to eat. We are not prepared for this. And this civilization is different than any other civilization because most of us live in the city. In the city, we don't grow anything. We have only concrete. We are not farming communities. We don't have food security. We are totally dependent on the chain of supply. And if that breaks down, all of a sudden millions of people will find themselves without power, without energy, without food, without water source. If they think the water is coming through the faucet, they're totally mistaken. There is an entire system behind that, and the system is totally dependent on the small details. So, why to gamble to this degree? It's better that we stay in awareness and realize if this is the end of a chapter of the human evolution, let's do it correctly. Let's accept it without having to speed the process up to a degree where the amount and the level of the human suffering will be intolerable.
Thank you so much, Mosab. You have an upcoming book, don't you? About the last prophet, as it is called. That's coming out soon, I believe.
Yes, it's coming out in January 21st. Okay. That's the street date.
I have pre-ordered it, just so you know.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's a very controversial book.
I love controversial things, especially if it's about prophets. You have said a lot of very important things, but if you want to have some final words, what is your advice? One thing that you want to tell people, especially those in the West who blindly get into this conflict as somebody who would be defined as a Palestinian from their perspective, what do you want to tell them?
Look, many of us here in the West, we have hit a dead end, I would say, because we went too much into the material and we abandoned the spiritual. We emptied things of their meaning, and all our relationships to objects, to people, to life is pretty much empty. And this is a very, very dangerous place. It's a very dangerous place because it's void, where we do a lot, we earn a lot, we eat a lot, and we do all type of things, thinking that they're going to give us satisfaction, but it looks like we haven't found satisfaction because there is no love, there is no light, there is no meaning. And this is where we stand now. This is when the enemy invades. And this is when we are most vulnerable. This is why many people are seeking revolution. And I tell them that the way of life is the way of evolution. It's not the way of revolution. The way of revolution is egoistic. It's man's way. The way of life is tolerance, is patience. It takes time to make things happen. And instead of speeding up the process of destruction, going suicidal, because now it looks, not only the Muslims say we're not afraid of dying, it looks like everybody say, hey, this life sucks, so it's just like revolution. Intifada. What intifada really means? It's chaos. So they want chaos. If they want to choose chaos, I suggest that they go to the desert and they commit suicide there. They let them get out of the city, get out of the civilized world, go somewhere that is not developed if you hate life that much, and clash until death. But don't force the innocent children who still have opportunity to develop and make different choices than our choices. Don't kill their opportunity. Whether if it's in Gaza or in New York or in London or the rest of the world. The way of life is evolution. And here is just a warning. As someone who lived under the fire of revolution. If they insist on choosing revolution, and I said this from the early beginning of the war, they need to expect to pay the bill in blood. Revolution is not a fun thing. It's not a virtual game where there is no suffering in it. No, there is imprisonment, there is kidnapping, there is violence, there is killing, there is injury, and there is trauma. And if this is what they want, and if they insist on it, then no problem. People like myself, we know where to go if things go completely out of control. I personally am not limited to the city. Earth is vast. And if they continue like this, they are going to be the ones who suffer because they don't have any other option. In fact, if they run out of food, they would starve to death. They don't even know how to cook an egg. Most of the people, they're totally dependent, ordering online, delivery, everything. So if they don't have that capacity to be even independent when it comes to their food, I don't know how they can continue like this if things go out of control. So this is just a friendly warning.
Yep.
They accept it. If they don't accept it, then they will have to deal with the consequences. A handful of people are not going to be there anymore. Okay, and those who survive are going to be a very small minority. And I'm telling you, this is very, very serious. We are not far from total destruction. I saw it even before COVID happened, that we would be taken by disease, by violence, by wars, by famine, by drought, by many other means. So this is where we need now to just look and see that we have been abusing. So we just need to come back to our awareness and to stop the madness, instead of like right now we're just going full speed in the wrong direction. And I hope that we don't reach that point of darkness.
I hope so. I hope so too. Thank you so much, Mosab. This was a great pleasure and a great honor. I hope to stay connected in the future. I wish you all the best. I hope that this ends well, although it doesn't really look very bright, to be honest. But still, wish all the best. Thanks everybody for watching. I would definitely suggest following Mosab Hassan Yousef on X and also on his interviews. You are frequently on Piers Morgan nowadays, which I always watch. It's always very very entertaining when people think they can arrogantly speak to you and get put in their place. Would also recommend definitely reading his books. I personally read Son of Hamas twice, and it's very, very inspiring.
Thank you.
But thanks everybody for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and to like and to share and all those things. And as always, stay away from Islam.
Thank you.